And it's not that you take a coin and you continually update and change it over a period of months or years. It's stamped in there.
That's right.
It's used in Mark chapter 15 about the sign over the cross. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. They said, well, let's change that. Pilate said, what I've written, I read. I ain't changing nothing. It's there.
Yeah, that's right.
It's used in Acts 17. Paul said, yeah, I saw on this altar an inscription, a writing. To the unknown, had been there 600 years. Nobody had changed or updated that. It was there for 600 years. Used in Revelation 21, 12 gates to glory. And over every gate was written, inscribed, one of the names of the 12 apostles. Yeah. So you say, well, that sounds like kind of a short book. If it's just written one time when you become a believer. But oh, my friend, as Jesus said to Nicodemus, if I've told you of earthly things and you believe not, how are you going to believe if I tell you of heavenly things? Now, I'm going to read some things to you about your physical body that just are absolutely beyond human imagination. Here's a little booklet by C. Everett Koop when he was Surgeon General of the United States, and a guy by the name of Gary Burgle, and it talks about you when you were born. You began when the sperm cell from your father met and united with the egg or ovum of your mother. During this act of conception or fertilization, two cells became a single living cell. You began. You were a unique individual. You never existed before in the history of the world, and you're not just like your parents or any of your ancestors. You have your own fingerprint, your own voice print, your own personality. It's you. Yeah. As the nuclei and the ovum and sperm unite during the first hours of fertilization, they bring together 23 chromosomes from the mother, 23 chromosomes from the father. These chromosome sets carry some 15,000 genes from each parent cell. In the first quiet hours of human conception, the genes, like letters of a divine alphabet, spell out the unique characteristics of the new individual. Color of eyes, color of hair, facial features, body type, and certain qualities of personality and intelligence are all determined by this genetic code, whether the baby was going to be a boy or a girl, and etc. I repeat, in the first quiet hours of conception, the genes, like letters of a divine alphabet, spell out the unique characteristics of that new individual. Now, we're talking about something physical. We're talking about the image of Adam. As you've borne the image of the earthly, then we also have the ability, the seed is planted, an earthly seed produces an earthly image because it comes from the earthly womb of our earthly mother. And when we somehow, Jerusalem is above, she's the mother of us all, somehow when we are born again, the seed is Jesus. He's the seed, and we're born again not of corruptible seed, but of the incorruptible, even the Word of God that lives and abides forever. The DNA. When you were first conceived, you couldn't even be seen with the naked eye. And yet in that little life, now God doesn't constantly change your DNA. Yeah. It was established at the moment of conception, and you were so small you couldn't even be seen with a human eye. And yet, they claim the DNA strand is so tiny that you can put 5 million of them at one time through the eye of a needle. That if the DNA strands in your body were connected together, they would reach to the moon, to the sun and back 4 different times, 92 million miles away. It's not just that these microscopic cells begin to change and reproduce. That would be miraculous enough. But there is a divine blueprint in that tiny little speck of life that has everything about you. The circulatory system of your body has 60,000 to 100,000 miles of arteries and veins, longer than any railroad in the United States. That was in your DNA. Your arteries relax as your heart beats and contract in between beats. That's why you feel pulse. And that provides a steady flow of blood to the entirety of your body. That was in the genes. And they've even come up with a new word, combining genes and chromosomes, called genome. I looked in the dictionary, couldn't even find it. Capillaries in your body are little tiny junction points between arteries and veins. They are so small that red blood cells pass through them in single file. The capillary walls are porous, allowing nourishment to pass through in one direction and carbon dioxide to pass through in the other. That was in your DNA. From day one. It's like a divine alphabet. God wrote it when those 23 chromosomes, 23 from your mother, 23 from your father, 15,000 genes from the other, and all of this was a divine blueprint. And it's like a switch. You're going to start a train from here to St. Louis or here to San Francisco. It's got to be switched. And so in the DNA, in the blueprint, which is you, these are fingerprints. There are 206 bones in the human body. But there are 3 bones in your body that have never grown since the day of your birth. The 3 little bones in your ear, which means that middle C on the piano sounds the same to a child who is just born or to a person who's 70 or 80 years of age. It's because those bones, and it's in the DNA. It's in the blueprint. In every square inch of your body, there are 3,500 sweat glands or perspiratory pores. If each of these pores is like a miniature drain pipe, microscopic in diameter, 1/4 of an inch long, if these were connected, it would be 201,166 feet long. Your kidneys are elaborate filtering devices containing 64 miles of pipes. Every 24 hours, your kidneys separate 180 quarts of filtrate from the blood. The 2 quarts of urea and ammonia are extracted, and the other 178 quarts of purified blood are returned to your system. The speed of your blood is determined by the vasometer at the base of your brain. When you're exercising, your heart rate increases, your respiration increases. That was in your DNA. The liver is the blood's master regulatory organ. It is the liver's job to see that blood contains at all times the exact amount of sugar needed by muscles and the precise amount of amino acids required for tissue building and repair. When you have eaten too much, the liver must store what it can and destroy the rest. A reserve supply of aminos and glycogen is kept on hand for emergencies. That's your physical body. This is the corruptible body. This is the body of humiliation, according to Philippians chapter 3. I heard a woman who was Mrs. America. And she said at a news conference, somebody said, what is the difference between Mrs. America and Miss America? She said, cellulite. Friend of mine, we are living in a fallen world. We're getting old. Getting old is not for sissies. I mean, I remember the late Don DeWelt. He talked about Philippians chapter 3, and he used the expression, the body of this humiliation. He'd been in the hospital, had multiple surgeries, and his earthly body was fading away. But spiritually, we can be renewed every day. The old covenant was not written to save people, quite to the contrary. It was written, according to Romans 3:19, that every mouth might be stopped and all the world become guilty before God. So the Old Testament scriptures were designed in such a way that you couldn't be saved.